When I bought my lake cabin 12 years ago, people told me it was the best decision I'd ever make. They were right. The place sat at the edge of Blackwater Lake, hidden behind pine trees and old gravel roads that most tourists never noticed. It wasn't flashy. No luxury docks, no giant vacation homes, just a quiet stretch of cabins built decades earlier by families who actually respected the land. Mine was cabin 14. I rebuilt most of it myself after my divorce. New roof, reinforced deck, stone fireplace, every paycheck from my construction job went into that place. I spent weekends repairing old wood, planting trees, and fixing storm damage while everyone else at the lake hired contractors. That cabin saved my life in ways nobody understood. Then the HOA arrived. At first, they sounded harmless. A group of wealthy investors bought several abandoned properties near the south side of the lake and announced plans to modernize the community. They promised increased property values, safer roads, upgraded docks, and better tourism opportunities. A lot of people believed them. I didn't. The first red flag came when they started talking about the old dam. Blackwater Lake existed because of a concrete spillway dam built in the 1950s. It controlled water levels and prevented seasonal flooding. It wasn't beautiful, but it worked. Every cabin owner depended on it whether they realized it or not. The HOA claimed the structure was outdated and unsafe. The funny thing was, the county had inspected it only 8 months earlier, passed with no major issues. But the HOA board kept pushing. They hired consultants, held closed-door meetings. Suddenly every newsletter talked about liability risks and future development opportunities. They wanted the dam removed so they could redesign the shoreline and build luxury waterfront villas where the shallow areas would eventually dry up. People fought back immediately. Old residents attended meetings carrying engineering reports. Retired contractors explained how removing the dam would destabilize the entire shoreline. Even local fishermen protested because the lake ecosystem depended on stable water levels. The HOA ignored everyone. Then came the threats. Cabin owners who opposed the project started receiving violation notices. Fines appeared for ridiculous things: mailbox, paint colors, dock stains, improper landscaping. One elderly couple got fined because their American flag was supposedly too faded. It became obvious what the HOA was doing: pressure people until they sell. Several families gave up and left within months. Their cabins were bought cheaply by investors connected to the HOA. That's when I started digging deeper. I went to the county records office and found something strange buried in the permit filings. The HOA had submitted a modified demolition request for the dam, but the environmental review section was incomplete. No wildlife assessment. No shoreline impact report. No flood risk analysis. Nothing. Legally, they shouldn't have been approved. I took copies of everything and brought them to the next HOA meeting. The room went dead silent when I started asking questions. The HOA president, a smug real estate developer named Richard Voss, smiled. The entire time, like he already knew the ending to the story. "You're overreacting," he told me calmly. "The professionals handling this know what they're doing." I asked why the environmental reports were missing. He refused to answer. Instead, 2 security guards approached me and escorted me out of the building while the board members watched. That night, someone slashed all 4 tires on my truck. 3 weeks later, demolition equipment arrived at the dam. The county issued a temporary stop order after several residents complained. But somehow, the HOA got it lifted within 48 hours. Nobody could explain why. I stood near the shoreline with dozens of other cabin owners while excavators ripped into 70 years of concrete. The sound echoed across the lake like thunder. Huge chunks collapsed into the water while workers cheered from bulldozers. Richard Voss actually showed up wearing sunglasses and shaking hands like it was a ribbon-cutting ceremony. He kept repeating the same phrase: "This is progress." For the first few days, nothing seemed different. Then the water started dropping. Slowly at first, a few inches, then feet. Boat docks tilted sideways. Mudflats appeared near the shoreline. Fish washed onto exposed rocks. Cracks formed beneath older cabins that had been built assuming the lake levels would stay stable. Panic spread fast. And then the rain came. 3 straight days of brutal storms hammered the valley. Without the dam controlling runoff, Blackwater Lake turned violent overnight. Water surged through the broken spillway area, with nothing regulating the pressure. Entire sections of shoreline collapsed into the current. At 2:13 in the morning, my phone rang. My neighbor was screaming. The hill gave out. Your cabin's gone." I drove through the storm faster than I probably should have. Trees were falling across the roads. Emergency sirens echoed through the valley. By the time I reached the lake, the police had already blocked access to most of the shoreline, but I could still see it, or what was left of it. Half the hillside behind cabin 14 had collapsed into the lake. My deck was gone. The foundation had split down the middle. One side of the cabin had completely slid into the black water below. Everything I built was destroyed in a single night. And it wasn't just me. 7 cabins were either destroyed or condemned within 48 hours. Fuel tanks leaked into the water. Docks snapped loose and drifted across the lake like broken rafts. Roads cracked apart from erosion. The HOA immediately blamed unexpected natural conditions. That's when I lost my patience. I contacted a lawyer in the city who specialized in land use disasters. The moment he reviewed the county permits, his expression changed completely. "They never completed the required geological studies," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means they knew this could happen." The investigation that followed exposed everything. Internal HOA emails revealed board members had been warned multiple times by independent engineers that removing the dam could destabilize the shoreline during heavy rain. One consultant even predicted catastrophic structural failure affecting nearby cabins. Richard Voss saw the warning personally and ignored it. Why? Because delaying the project would have cost investors millions. The lawsuit exploded across local news within days. Former HOA employees came forward anonymously. County officials suddenly claimed they were misled during the approval process. Residents who once supported the HOA turned against them overnight. Then the financial collapse started. Insurance companies refused to cover the damage because the disaster was linked to unauthorized structural demolition. Investors pulled out. Property values crashed. Multiple board members resigned before depositions even began. Richard Voss tried to disappear. Didn't work. The judge froze HOA assets while investigators examined fraud allegations connected to the permits. The same man who once mocked residents in meetings was suddenly sitting in court looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. The final ruling came nearly 18 months later. The HOA was found liable for gross negligence, environmental violations, and intentional suppression of engineering risks. They lost everything. Their luxury development project was canceled permanently. Several board members faced personal lawsuits. Richard Voss filed for bankruptcy less than 6 months later. And me,